our panelists for, without exception, their very cogent testimony.
There's Kamala Harris, right? Okay, here we go.
Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution states very clearly, and I quote, "Congress shall have the power to declare war," end quote. The Founding Fathers gave the power to authorize military conflicts to Congress for one very simple reason. Congress is the branch of the government that is most accountable to the people. There is no question but that over the years, Congress has allowed its authority over this very important issue of war making to ebb. It is time for us to reassert that authority and to start asking some very tough questions about the wars, and I use the word wars, W-A-R-S, that we are currently in. Now, some people may think that this is an interesting, abstract discussion. We have brilliant constitutional scholars, wonderful intellectual debate. But let me assure every person here that the abdication of Congress to its responsibilities over war has had incredibly dire and horrific consequences for the people of our country and, in fact, the world. So I want to bring this down to earth and away from an abstract, although enormously important constitutional discussion.
I just want to break in for a second and say that it's the most popular senator in the United States Congress just said that the wars we're in have had unbelievably dire consequences. I can't say it, but he said it. So I don't hear anybody else saying that. Do you hear Chuck Schumer saying that our wars have had dire consequences? No, they say everything's fine and we need to beat ISIS, and here's $80 billion more for the defense, right?
Pretty much.
So it's good. Hey, so right there, gold star off the bat.
I want to give you 3 examples in recent American history where Congress did not ask the right questions, abdicated its responsibility, and the consequences were enormous. Very few Americans know that when we deal with Iran, very much in the news right now, how many people know that in 1953, the United States, along with the British, overthrew the democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh, reinstalling authoritarian rule under the Shah. In 1979, the Shah was overthrown in the Iranian Revolution, bringing to power an extremist anti-American government.
Now, I'd be willing to bet everything that I own that when you hear discussions on CNN and MSNBC about Iran currently, they don't ever mention that. They don't ever mention how we got here. They act like history started 5 minutes ago. And have you ever heard another senator even mention the fact that it was us, the United States, and our CIA who overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran, who wanted to spread democracy No. The only guy maybe other people have said it. I haven't heard it. So here's Bernie laying it down. Hey, you got a problem with Iran? Guess what that's from? Us meddling. That's from the Congress abdicating its constitutional responsibilities.
Okay. Yeah, the only other place I've heard people say stuff like that is in documentaries, and none of them were politicians. That's for damn sure.
That's right. Here we go. So 2 big gold stars.
In 1953, the United States government, without congressional approval, thought that it could simply remove the government of Iran in order to protect wealthy oil interests. And what has been the consequences of that over the years? Congress abdicated its responsibility. And the second one, more relevant to my generation, was the war in Vietnam. In 1964, now Iran took place under Eisenhower, Republican. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson, Democrat, otherwise, in my view, a very great president.
He's got to say that. Otherwise, great. He was great. He was really great president, except he killed 3 million in Indochina. I guess we could blame some of that on Kissinger and Nixon. So maybe it's not all him.
But in this instance, cited an attack on a U.S. ship in the Gulf of Tonkin as a pretext for escalating the U.S. intervention in Vietnam. But we now know from his own recordings that Johnson himself doubted that story about that attack. Johnson's administration misled both Congress and the American people into a war.
How about lied? They'll never say it. They'll never say he misled. Never say it. But look, he's on it.
It resulted in the loss of over 50,000 American soldiers and over 1 million Vietnamese. Congress was lied to. There was no serious debate about American intervention in that war. Third example, more recently, that we all remember was Iraq. Today, it is now broadly acknowledged that the Iraq War was a foreign policy blunder of enormous magnitude. In this case, the Bush administration lied to the American people, claiming that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. The result of that war, the loss of thousands of brave American soldiers, the displacement of millions of people in the Middle East, and bringing us to where we are right now.
The blunder.
Well, he called that one a lie, though. He said the George W. Bush lie.
So there you go. So he took the gloves off a little there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice to see he's getting. So that's what people loved about Trump, or a lot of people loved about Trump, was that he told the truth about Iraq right to Jeb Bush's face in a Republican debate.
And Jimmy, I am already the least popular person in this room. I gotta sugarcoat it a little bit.
So look, so that's 3 gold stars right away. Says they lied about the Iraq War. Says the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag or hoax, either way. And that we created the situation in Iran today by overthrowing democratically elected governments without the consent of our people, meaning Congress.
In other words, what we have seen is time and time again, disasters occur when administrations, Democrat and Republican, mislead Congress and the American people, and when Congress fails to do its constitutional job in terms of asking the hard questions of whether or not we should be in a war. And I think we need to ask that very hard question today. And here is the point that I hope the American people are asking themselves. Is the war on terror a perpetual, never-ending war necessary to keep us safe? I personally believe that we have become far too comfortable with the United States engaging in military interventions all over the world. After 9/11, Congress passed an authorization for the use of military force, quote, against those responsible for the recent attacks launched against the United States, end quote. The following year, Congress passed the 2002 AUMF against Iraq. We have now been in Afghanistan for 17 years. We have been in Iraq for 15 years. We are occupying a portion of Syria, and this administration has indicated that it may broaden that mission even more. We are waging a secretive drone war in at least 5 countries. Our forces right now, as we speak, are supporting a Saudi-led war in Yemen, which has killed thousands of civilians and has created the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet today.
It's not Syria. The Assad the Butcher isn't the worst. No, turns out what we're doing is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world today. Committing siege warfare in Yemen, which is a war crime. And we're doing it with Saudi Arabia. So he's checking all the boxes, tagging all the bases. He's got it.
Clearly, these outdated and expansive AUMFs have been used by 3 different administrations.
So if you don't know what the AUMF is, that's the authorization for use of military force. So that's Congress gave that to George Bush after 9/11 to go kill our enemies who did this stuff on 9/11. Well, they've used that AUMF, authorization for use of military force, to go after anybody they say is a terrorist. So that was supposed to be used for the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. We've been using that to go into Somalia. We've been using that to go into Yemen, Syria, Libya, Iraq, anywhere we want. So that's what he's talking when he says the AUMF. He's talking about the authorization Congress gave the president to wage war against the people who attacked us on 9/11. And he's about to point out some of these groups that we're using that authorization on to have war against weren't even invented until after 9/11. So here, he'll talk about it.
Republican and Democrat, as a blank check for the president to wage war without congressional consent or oversight. Meanwhile, we are currently, quote unquote, fighting terrorism in some 76 countries with an estimated cost of $5.6 trillion and untold lives lost since 2001.
He said, did he say 76 countries?
Mm-hmm.
We're fighting terrorism in 76 countries. Maybe we rein that in a little bit. Maybe we rein that into just maybe, I don't know, 7 countries. 76 countries. How can we afford that? No one said. How can we afford that? No one ever asked. Ever.
I think it is very clear, and our panelists, I think, made the point extraordinarily well, without exception, that the time is long overdue, Mr. Chairman, for the United States Congress to respect the Constitution of this country and to stand up for that Constitution and to demand that it is the Congress of the United States, not a president, who determines whether our young men and women are put in harm's way. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
What else does he have to say?
Let me ask you this question, and you may well have gone over it when I wasn't in the room. When we talk about giving the president today virtually complete authority, if we read in the paper that the president decided to bomb someplace tomorrow, nobody would blink an eye, right? That's what we were seeing for decades. You talk about the presidential impact of allowing presidents to do this. What does that mean above and beyond wars, above and beyond abrogating the Constitution of the United States? What does it mean to our quality of life in this country?
Before we get to that, let me just stop and say his foreign policy, I think he's doing what everybody would want, every progressive would want someone to do, to say, hey, all these wars are illegal and they're bullshit and they have dire consequences and we need to end them now unless we're willing to authorize them as a people, which we're not. And he knows we're not. So I don't know if you remember when Barack Obama wanted to go bomb Syria the first time after the first pretend gas attack, Barack Obama said, I'll ask the people, I'll ask Congress, because he thought he would get it. They didn't give it to him. Guess what? We ended up bombing Syria anyway. So that's what he's talking about. And so I think he just said, he just laid it out. We're committing the greatest humanitarian disaster in the world right now. We're doing that with Saudi Arabia. And none of this has been authorized. And so what I hear Bernie Sanders saying is, we need to end all this because it's not authorized. What does my panel say?
You know, we talked about this before. The last time war was declared was World War II. That was the last time it was declared.
Because the Korean War was a policing action, right? Mm-hmm. What else?
The article says Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, Iraq. Technically, those were not wars. They're not. Wars. They're extended military engagements.
Ah!
And then
that's like when Prince used to go do an extended engagement right at the Staples Center. So we're doing an extended engagement with our military. It's the Marines tour. So yeah, none of those were wars.
Right. And then this article from Time, it's like, I think it's 2014. It goes on to say that President Obama, too, has been selective about the way he uses the word war in the buildup to today's situation with the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
Hey, we war crime some people. War crime some folks. Some folks got war crime. You know, But that happened in the past. It didn't happen in the future, so it's okay. Anything, Ron? You want to add? I'm just saying that a lot of progressives have been down on Bernie's foreign policy, and I think this is a good start.
Well, Jimmy, is there any politician
Tulsi?
saying we need peace? Is there anybody except this?
No, I think maybe Tulsi's saying that. I think Rand Paul is saying that we need to. I think he's in agreement with Bernie as far as
Congress
this
needs-
isn't authorized. I don't know how much of a peacenik he is, but I think he is a libertarian anti-interventionist.
Well, I think there's some people that have spoken out against the AUMF solely for the reason that Trump is president.
Right.
Yes.
They haven't spoken out because, hey, this is wrong and our economy of war needs to end. It's just because, oh, Trump's so bad. We didn't have a problem with it until now. So, yeah, I think Bernie is finally just taking it a step further and using the opportunity to say, hey, time to end this endless war. It's ridiculous, and the public doesn't want it.
I mean, is it weird at all that we have a lot of homeless right now in the United States, more than I've ever seen driving in California, throughout California? We have this increase in homelessness. And when I talk to my friends, how many of your friends really know how many countries that we're doing these military engagements in? How
my
many of them
friends?
even have time?
Zero of my friends. Zero. Even I would bet that even encyclopedic knowledge Michael Schur wouldn't know that we're in 76 countries right now, fighting terrorism in 76 different countries. I didn't know that until I heard Bernie say it. Did you know it?
No.
I didn't know.
I didn't know it was that
right?
high. No.
So I don't think anybody knows that. I don't think anybody, well, nobody knows how many military bases we even have around the world because a lot of them are secret. They say 800. Some people say 1,000. So it's probably over 1,000 military bases we have in the world. Military bases.
And
Isn't
when
that amazing?
when was the last time you saw mainstream media cover a peace protest?
Yeah, never. It took them a week to cover Occupy Wall Street. It was happening right outside their frickin' windows. They didn't cover it for a whole week. So I just want to, we'll stand it there. Bernie is going to go on. This is a great topic about what is the effects at home of giving the president the blank check to kill willy-nilly overseas. Well, how does that affect us back home? The answer to that just may surprise you. Or will it? That's another video. Our next live Jimmy Dore show is July 1st in Portland, Oregon, and July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. We're doing a live show July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. Go to a link right there for all the tickets to all the live Jimmy Dore shows. Plus, if you can help become a premium member, we give you hours of bonus material every week. Become a patron or a premium member. And if you're on Steam It, we're steaming it right now. Plus, every Saturday, we do a live Super Solid Chat Saturday where it's a live stream and you can ask us questions and we'll answer them back. Every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks for your support.